This is a 90-90 bridge untuck tuck exercise. The goal of this is to mimic the position that you'll need to accomplish in a deadlift. So a deadlift is actually quite challenging because we want to get those ribs back in space, thinking about our thorax back in space. So we need that nice backside expansion. We want to keep our sternum lifted, not lifted so much that we arch through the back, but keeping this kind of sternal headlight facing forward. So when you go into your deadlift and hinge, you have this headlight facing forward. We also want the glutes to be able to lengthen on the backside. So if you had a headlight both on your sternum and kind of right in between the sits bones, everything is pointing in that direction as you hinge. Think about that flashlight towards the wall behind you and that headlight facing forward. So we're going to get into a 90-90 position so we can leverage the hamstrings and the abdominals to move our pelvis. So we can exhale those ribs back and have the floor as a foundation and a point of reference. We can keep that sternum lifted by driving the elbows into the ground, and when we can untuck and tuck the pelvis so we can feel that sensation of the sits bones opening on the backside and feeling that length, which we'll need when we go into our hinge. So setting up in a 90-90 position, we'll take a couple breaths to get ourselves set. And we want to get those feet on the wall and really think about dragging the feet down, because we're going to go into that bridge position and we want the hamstrings to be kind of elevating us up off the ground, kind of holding that 90-90 bridge isometric versus gripping on the booty. So right in this position, I might find that I kind of come into that little flared position. So we want to think about a nice inhale and then exhale the ribs back in space. You can almost think about your ribs and your back sort of melting into the ground. And we want that to be a nice long ha exhalation versus a forced exhale, which really just kind of crunches us down and overutilizes these rectus six-pack muscles. So thinking about a nice inhale and exhale. Exhaling those ribs back, keeping the sternum lifted. We can drive the elbows into the ground, thinking about kind of bringing those shoulder blades together on the backside just a little bit so we can feel that air in the chest. So taking a nice inhale here and exhale those ribs back. So that's that position that we're going to accomplish when we come into that 90-90 position. So I'm going to really think about driving or dragging my heels down the wall and elevating my pelvis just slightly. I'm utilizing my hamstrings. I'm not bridging up all the way here. I'm pulling down on my heels, dragging down the wall, and my hamstrings are scooping the pelvis under. You can think about the knees coming up towards the ceiling. Notice I'm just about an inch or so off the ground. My low back is completely connected. I'm feeling these hamstrings on. My glutes are not clenching. Driving the elbows into the ground. I'm going to think about that nice inhale into the chest and exhale the ribs back. Now in this position, I'm going to think about dumping my pelvis forward just slightly. So you can think about kind of rocking the pelvis forward. Now notice this is a small movement in the pelvis. I'm utilizing my hamstrings and my abs to manipulate that movement in the pelvis. Not so much that I completely arch and lose this rib position. So coming once again into that bridge position, driving the elbows into the ground. I'm going to think about inhaling, dumping my pelvis forward. Keeping this dump forward position just slightly. Inhale into the chest, exhale. Ribs back. Keep that dump forward position. You can even play with it and kind of dump forward and back and do a nice inhale and exhale, lift from the bottom up. So as we inhale, we want to feel that air flowing down into the body and into the chest. So we want to think about breathing down into our butt Bring down into our vagina, and then exhale from the bottom up. So if you're in this bridge position and your booty is tucked under, and you try to get that inhale and then exhale, you're gonna feel like that booty is kind of tucked under and you can't really get that air and sensation to the backside or kind of the backside, like your rectum area. It's really hard to feel that air and pressure flow down, versus if we're in this position and we let the pelvis tip forward a little bit. Think about opening the sits bones on the backside, but keeping these lower ribs back, chest lifted. Now inhale and exhale. Inhale down and exhale, lift. You're going to feel like that air and pressure can flow down into the body. So I'm going to do this one more time, just holding that isometric small lift. Allow the pelvis to come forward slightly, but keeping the ribs back and the sternum lifted. So that is your 90-90 bridge iso with your tuck and untuck. That position mimics what you'll do in a deadlift.